It was good there to see an interview with Jim Robertson, see what actually goes on behind the barriers. It's quite a dangerous job, and as you would know, Larry, you'd vouch for the barrier attendants there.
Oh, for sure. Look, I've been saved many a time by the barrier attendants, by horses that are going off on the gates, and their priority obviously is to try to keep the horse and rider safe, and get the race underway as quickly as possible. They do an outstanding job. The
unsung hero of the racing industry, the barrier attendants. Get on, boys, you're doing a great job out there. Now, we're looking at the eyeliner, 1350 listed. Larry, you've won the race on pittance.
Yeah, I won the race on pittance, and it was a year that the bad fall in the Ipswich Cup. Can't remember exactly what. That's correct. Yeah. So pittance was before that race, and he won with a leg in the air, and I think he came out and won it the year after. This year I ride What Happened Henry. It looks to be a very even sort of race, and he's got a knockout chance.
Ben, what do you like here?
Yeah, I think What Happened Henry's a little knockout chance. For real smoky punters, I do like a horse called Summersea Drive. And Larry, I know you'll be scoffing at me, this thing's a bit of a dog, it hangs. But every time I've seen this horse run, it's 3 and 4 and 5 wide. I just want to see them ride it stone cold and put him in your first fours.
Yeah, there's one here called Adnicon from the Gerald Ryan stables, won this race last year. Like I stated on this show a few times, I like horses that have won at this time of the year previously. They seem to run well for some reason. They just like it. They know what's going on. Now, Listen Son, that was in the Stradbroke, it's got to be some sort of hope. Yeah,
look, it was remiss of me just then, punters. I am pretty keen on one here though. Jet Set Lad for Johnny Wheeler. Missed a start in the Stradbroke. I know that Wheels was pretty keen on this horse leading up to the Stradbroke. His form last start looks a fraction disappointing, but the 1350 at Ipswich, put him in.
Put him in all right. Now, I've got a little interest. Have you been watching The Voice at all?
Percival's an absolute certainty.
Larry?
Look, I think the girl that sung Hallelujah, I think she's got a great chance, and I think she's one for me.
I tell you, they tell me that you've got a bit of a singing duo or a bit of prowess behind you. Is that true? Hey?
I don't know about
you got to come on and play that.
I can play the guitar though, very roughly.
Mate, I'd be disappointed if the only song you could sing would be Ring a Ding Ding, Pumper's the King. You get the wrong name there.
Well, we're going to have to get you on next week with that guitar and strum us a tune. Now, during the week, I caught up with Christine Perry, a vet from down south, and she's got a new toy that she's using, scoping, where she's seeing what horses can bleed during their gallops. It's a very interesting segment coming up. So now we're going to catch up with Christine Perry during the week. Christine, what's different about this scope to other scopes?
Basically, it's a dynamic scope. So the main difference is, there's one physical difference. It's a much thinner scope, and it's based on just a camera and LED lights. Normal scopes are fibre optics and can't be bent, which has always been a limiting factor in being able to use them in the moving horse. So this one, we can bend it, we can crimp the tube, and we can keep it in place while the horse is moving. This is the water bottle, and as the scope stays in the horse will be producing mucus as it runs, and so we need to be able to flush the end of the scope so that we can keep a really good picture. So this goes into the saddle blanket. This is a control device, and we can actually set how fast we want it to flush. If you had a horse with a lot of mucus, you could set it faster to keep the scope clean, and we just prime it on here. And then this goes through and goes onto the scope and just continuously flushes, so we get a continuous view through the scope. This is how we flush the end of the scope, so that'll be dripping. So every 20 to 30 seconds, it'll put water over the end of the scope, which will keep our picture clear, so we get a good picture all the way through. This is the monitoring device that we actually use to place the scope. It's a wireless device, so when the horse is on the far side of the track, we can't see it, but that doesn't matter because it's recording constantly on the saddle blanket. But this is what allows us to keep checking, so when the horse is out on the track, as it comes past each time, we can check that the scope's still working. That's the flush you'll see on the screen at the moment. It goes as the water droplet comes on the end of the camera. So every time the horse comes past and at the end of the session, we can still check that our scopes are still in place on the horse. So at all times we know that we're recording the right thing. If the scope does become dislodged, which so far on all these scopes it doesn't seem to, if it did for any reason, we'd know immediately from the monitor, so we could change it and reassess things.
What we're after?
It is. That's exactly what we want, that view there. We've just got to make sure that the scope's going to stay in the position that we want it to stay in.
How does it stay in position?
I just crimp it here at the nostril, and then it's tied onto two separate clips on the horse on the face here, and then we'll also cable tie it in just for security because I'm a little bit concerned about it. Probably don't need the cable ties, but I think we all just use them because we can't really have the scope coming out at speed. That would be quite bad for the rider. So by doing this, it's never actually come out, and they don't cable tie them in Europe where the scope was developed, but you know, we love our cable ties here in Australia, so we'll use lots of them.
Rider, mount your horse. What's the difference between using the scope on a treadmill and as we've just used in a full gallop, as we've just witnessed?
The main difference with a treadmill is that the treadmills, they're still using a fibre optic, which means you don't get as clear a picture because the horse moves, the scope moves. The major difference is that we can come to the horse. The horse doesn't have to come to us. With a treadmill, the horse has to go for a couple of days to a training facility. They have to be taught to use the treadmill. I mean, there has been a few injuries in treadmills, but that's not been a big factor. But the horse does have to get used to the treadmill, so it's a couple of days away from training, and there's obviously costs associated with that. And also that the horse isn't in a full gallop situation. A horse can't stretch out to full gallop on a treadmill, whereas it does on its home track. There's also gear factors. The way a horse is holding its head in particular gear or particular riders can also make a difference to their wind, to their larynx, the way that the larynx moves dynamically. And distance also makes a big difference. So if they've got a particular distance that they run, we can run them exactly over that distance on the same track and reproduce the situations in which the horse is having a problem.
So using this scope in race conditions has its advantages over using a treadmill?
Absolutely, we can get the horse into a full gallop, and a horse is dynamically different at a full gallop. Even if you can get the same workout on a treadmill by working it a little bit slower but for longer, it's a different dynamic to when the horse is stretched out and galloping. There's also the weight of a rider, the way that the horse balances itself with the rider on its back, and the gear, the bit in its mouth, the reins, the way a horse moves is very important for the way that its larynx works. We've also got the saddle blanket system's one way. There's also a box that can be used on the harness, so we can stick it onto a gig and use it on a trotter as well, which again, for the trotters, we can do them on their home track, and for them it makes a big difference because they're pulling a gig, and that's a major difference to being on a treadmill.
Currently you can't use the scope on Queensland tracks, is that correct?
That is correct. They're apparently formulating a policy at the moment, but the scope can be used on a track in any other state of Australia, both on trotting tracks and on flat racing.
And the cost?
It will depend on the horse, how many horses we have to do. It's going to be somewhere around $800 by the time that we get there and do the scope, which may seem a lot of money compared to a normal scope, which is more like 100 to 150. But really, if you look at it as a week's training or 2 weeks training for a horse that doesn't have an airway, if a horse doesn't have an airway, it can't gallop. It's one of the only parts of the horse that you can't train. You can train its heart, you can train its lung capacity, you can train its legs, but you can't change its airway. The airway it has is the airway it's born with.
Christine Perry, thank you for your time and all the best with the new scope.
No problems, thank you, it's very exciting.
It's a great service there Christine Perry has with a scoping device there. Now, getting into it, the Ipswich Cup over the 2150 listed race. Larry, you've won this race. Portland singer, Al Lucas, you know what it takes. You're riding play action. How do you rate his chances?
Yeah, look, I think play action's got a great chance. His run the other day behind Solzhenitsyn was very good. He got beat about 4 or 5 lengths, finishing third, and stepping up in distance, which I don't think is going to be a problem. He's won over 1800. He's going to put himself fairly close, and I think he's got a great chance. And hopefully I can add a third Ipswich Cup to my tally.
Yeah, no, I'm putting him on top play action myself. Now that form behind Solzhenitsyn is going to be very strong. It's been noted that Robbie Heathgate punters is going to set Solzhenitsyn for the Cox Plate. Whether he gets a run or not, I don't know, but that's his line of take he'll be taking with him. An interesting little fact here I've got for you. Over the mile at Eagle Farm, over the last 3 years, there's been about 157 races ran over the mile, and only 2 horses have won from barrier 9. And Solzhenitsyn was the third horse to win from that barrier. An interesting little statistic. Ben, who do you like?
For those who follow Twitter, I saw some remarks between Muntz and Henderson, one of the owners of Kinnersley, during the week, last week. They seemed a little bit confident. That's good enough for me. I'll put Kinnersley on top for Waterhouse. Probably straight on the bunny. Might do a Dubai and Gold, or Gold and Dubai, which sort of got rolling last year and won. I'll put it on top. I think Samstown for Heathcote, he's been running on okay the last few starts. He might sneak into a place in the Ipswich Cup, but Kinnersley on top for me, Jess.
You know, I backed Kinnersley when he won at 30 to 1 at Rose Hill. He went straight to the front and he won, and I took a bit of that and I was very happy. Well, this is the only racing show that I know where there's been a 100 to 1 winner, 70 to 1 winner, 50 to 1 each way, 30 to 1. This is where it's at. Racing in Queensland, the greatest racing show in Australia, if not the world. Go on, Black Caviar.
Well, let's hope we can keep it going. Kinnersley certainly won't be at 100s or 50s or even 33s, but if you can get a price early, might as well go take it.
I'm going to tip Larry on here on Play Action. Larry, expecting you to be at your best. It's going to be like Dodge in the Epsom. Going to do a fantastic, phenomenal ride there. I remember taking those lovely odds that day. Sunline won that day as well, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, she did. I won the flight stakes on it.
Yeah, I walked out with plenty on that day. Given plenty back as well. But there you have it. Oh, and just before we head off, you can follow us on Twitter at Horse Racing Queensland and Twitter, and you can also go to the website racinginqueensland.com. Now, before we go, Ben, you've got a little message for the fans out there.
Yeah, look, punters, just quickly during the week, the passing of Paul Nolan, a North's Devils supporter, passed away. They buried him on Tuesday, so I know it won't be the same tomorrow without Paul in the TAB at North's Devils there. So just a quick shout out to all the boys at North's Devils.
And there you have it, folks. I hope so. Another welcome there. Thanks for joining us for another show of Racing in Queensland, and thanks to the panel. Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, boys, and good luck tomorrow, Larry. Hope we can finish the carnival on a big note.
Ben. Cheers.
I'm sure you will. I'm on Play Action. Now, folks, that brings us to another end, and follow us on Twitter and then join us on the website as well, and join in all the chats and all the news. And we've got plenty of winners, and I'm sure we've found plenty more for you at Bundamba tomorrow. I'm your host, Jesse McDonald. Thanks for joining us, and see you next week. Bye for now.